So after they deliver a baby, what actually happens is that they go through a very different phase. They're not able to recognize themselves, and this is one of the most common notions that I've heard on all the conversations I've had with so many mothers, that I cannot look at myself in the mirror. The pelvic floor muscles, we are designed that way. Women are designed that way. They will expand during pregnancy, so they become much more weak, right? So women also go through something like urinary incontinence. Like even if they'll laugh or sneeze, they will end up passing a little urine. See, women tend to get deficient, like I already said, in calcium, iron. So diet is important for them, right? Proteins, calcium, iron, omega-3. It also has to come from diets. Your doctor might prescribe you a calcium supplement, iron supplement, which is very common post-delivery for lactating mothers. But you need to also support it through diet, right? At some point of time, you're going to give up on these supplements, right?
5 best exercises for 2 parts. 1, women during pregnancy, when just about pre-delivery, and 5 post-delivery. Hi and welcome to another interesting conversation on Expert Talk with Bhavya Desai. This is a conversation which is on uncharted territories and a topic which I think has not been covered a lot. It is with one of my very good friends, Suvidhi Jain, who's actually a very good life coach. She's, and I think one of her important aspects of what she does is helping a lot of those young mothers and especially getting people rid of that postpartum weight in terms of fitness and coaching. Very good conversation. I think the reason why I feel that this conversation was so important is because a lot of people don't understand what it really takes or what people go through or women go through during that period. Not just from that perspective, I think this is also important for men because they also need to understand what their partners, what their wife, what their mothers they go through in order to give them a lot of support. So I hope you enjoy this. If you like this, then please make sure that you like, share and subscribe to our channel. You can go on Instagram, look at us there as well and enjoy the show. So hi Suvidhi, welcome to Expert Talk with Bhavya Desai podcast, and I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because I think the sort of work that you're doing is really exciting, and on top of that, I think it's very important. I don't just think it's important from a perspective of course, what women go through, but it's also very important about how men also think, because I feel men are usually wired very differently.
Right.
I think today's generation still tries to get into these things, but I still feel that level of education, that level of understanding is still not there. Yes. So that's the reason why I thought it'd be great to actually have this conversation with you.
Thank you, and I'm honored to be here. This is something that is the need of the hour. Like, everyone be educated about what fitness is for women and how they should also, find that as a priority in their list. Right. It's not about just taking care of their house, their kids, their husbands, their families, but themselves. True. So I think it's very important to address this today.
Absolutely. And also I just wanted to say that, for the benefit of our viewers, that I know, of course, you're a fitness coach, but a lot of your work is also dedicated towards, and I think you say that also very proudly, that it's dedicated towards young mommies, where you help them to really get fit, and focus and channelize your energy a lot into that.
So I'm a mom. I have 2 10-year-olds, they're twins, and I have been through this journey myself. So when I ended up being in this field, it made me realize, I had to deal with a lot of people. But the people that I connected with the most were the mothers.
Right.
Because I had gone through that journey myself, and it's easier to, answer their queries or walk them through and understand their struggles in life, right? So I think 95% of my clients right now are mothers, right. And it's much easier to help them now.
Yeah. I think especially because it's so important as well. So I'm just going to directly jump into it because there's so much that I want to cover. There's so much that there are so many questions that I have, because I think from my personal perspective as well, there's so much that I think there's lack of knowledge in that respect. So first and the most basic question would be, if you can just define like what really is postpartum for most people. I think people have heard that as a topic, they've heard that as a word, but I don't think people still know exactly what that means.
So basically, when a woman gets pregnant, right, so she goes through a prenatal phase, right, till the time of her delivery. And once she delivers, then starts her postpartum phase. So initially 6 weeks is the healing period for any women, you know, whether it's a woman has gone through a normal delivery or a C-section delivery.
Right.
So that's the healing period, because, you know, the body is getting habitual back to, you know, what it used to be, and all the hormones in the body and getting used to the new routine, the baby and everything takes time. So, you know, we have this, you know, kind of Indian norms also around that, you know, those 40 days, women should not do this. Women should not. So they have also stemmed from the fact that, you know, women need that kind of time to recover, right? So even when you go to a doctor and they'll ask you, you know, how much time postpartum it has been, you know, they'll ask, is it 6 weeks? Is it 8 weeks? Are you good to go back to your normal lifestyle now? So that rest period is initially the postpartum phase, right? And then it keeps extending till the time you're actually able to recover and come out of it. So usually I would say, you know, those 6 weeks are really important, but then it extends up to 6 months as well.
So it's different for different women. I mean, it can be like usual is 6 weeks, and then it can possibly be.
And it also covers a lot of aspects, right? It's not just the physical fitness that we're talking about. Women tend to go through a lot of, you know, personally, mentally, because their life turns upside down, right? You were chilling in your pregnancy period and having a gala time, and all of a sudden you are, you know, swamped with the responsibility of a kid who's, I think, awake throughout the night, right? And you have to deal with, you know, everything. From changing diapers to the feed time, taking them for vaccination, everything. So that takes a lot of toll on you, physically, mentally, emotionally, right? So that period, that's why it's very important for the women, right? That's why it's called the postpartum phase.
So I'll circle back to some of the important things about mental health and stuff like that, because I think that's a very, very critical part of the conversation as well. But I thought that just to set the narrative, because we've got an idea of what the postpartum period is, you know, if we just take it like from a fitness perspective and what people do from kind of the pre-delivery sort of a stage, and then we move along like that, because then I think it'll be like nice and structured. So during the pre-delivery, I think the most common question, or the first thought that really comes to my mind, especially when it comes to fitness and in that respect, is that what is the right time until you can actually work out when you are in the pre-delivery phase?
So that's the very common misconception that, you know, most Indian women have, right? They would stop all their workouts, they would only go for a walk or anything, you know, during their pregnancy phase. While you can do absolutely everything, right? In fact, the more active you are, how it's going to be a much easier delivery, right? So of course, you will not do a lot of heavy lifting and everything, right? But if you have been a lifter, if you've been doing strength training, you can continue to do so, right? You can do it with a lighter weight, and there are certain positions that you will not be able to take, like, you know, prone position, lying on your stomach, or your supine position, lying on your back. So those positions you will not take, or, you know, do something which are absolutely stable position, not doing something which is single-legged or something. And things like, you know, yoga, because that will help with your flexibility, that will help with your mobility, going for walks. So a combination of things can be done, right? So that in terms of workout is safe for, you know, all the women who are there. But of course, your doctor is the best judge, right? There are certain conditions in which the doctor would prescribe, you know, you cannot move, you need to be on a bed rest. So in that case, whatever you're doing, please run it by a doctor. That's the first condition for everything, right? Now, coming to nutrition, like, women are always told, you know, now you should be eating for 2 people, you know, now you have one, you know, a baby to take care inside of you, so, you know, you need to eat that much. But if you have to understand it, the baby is just like a pea size, right? So it's not going to require that much nutrition, right? So in the initial phase, maybe, you know, the 0 to 3 months of your pregnancy period, you're supposed to eat almost as much you're eating. So it gradually starts increasing by then, you know. In the second trimester, you'll be eating a little more than that, right? So maybe 200, 300 calories more. And by the third trimester, you'll eat around 450 calories or something. So it's not like you're eating double. So that's why, you know, women tend to gain a lot of weight through their pregnancy. They don't realize it, right? And also they get into the habit of eating that much, right? So they come with the misconception that, you know, when I deliver a baby, I will go back to normal. Right? They don't realize that this weight gain is not going to go in a second, right? So after they deliver a baby, what actually happens is that, you know, they go through a very different phase. They're not able to recognize themselves. And this is one of the most common notions that I've heard on all the conversations I've had with so many mothers, that, I cannot look at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
I can't recognize myself. I don't have the confidence. And this is what has happened with them, because there was no knowledge. They didn't know what to do then.
Right.
And postpartum as well, there are a lot of notions that, you should still be eating those panjiris and everything. So they'll be good, but to a certain limit.
Got it.
Right? If you exceed the limit and you keep eating those things, then, again, it's going to, lead to another weight gain. Right?
Yeah.
And most mothers, surprisingly, don't, gain weight in their pregnancy. They would lose, some weight after they deliver, but they gain in the breastfeeding phase.
Okay.
Because in the breastfeeding phase, women tend to become more hungrier. Yeah, because they're continuously feeding their child.
Right.
So they're losing their nutrition also. So they do get a lot of hunger pangs. Now, they don't know what to eat during those hunger pangs. So they tend to eat whatever is available.
Right.
So whether it's snacking unlimitedly on junk food, or, eating your, saturated fats food or fried foods or anything. So that tends to lead to the weight gain. So that's why it's in this easy to understand and look at what they should be eating.
Okay.
So proper meal timing should be fixed for them. Good snacking options should be given to them, right? And because they're breastfeeding mothers, there are also micro level nutrient requirements, right? Whether it's your calcium, whether it's your iron, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids. So all these things should be included in the diet.
Okay.
Right? You can't depend a lot on supplements, right?
Right.
So these things should also be coming from diet. So all these things, whether from food, should be there in the diet, so that, they are able to have it and pass it on to their child as well.
But are a lot of these realistically possible? The reason is because you mentioned that when in postpartum, or once they've just basically delivered, obviously there's a lot emotionally which has come. There's a lot of mental stress as well. There's fatigue as well, physically as well. Then to manage those things, it's just that one more additional brick that you really have to do. So
that's why that 6 weeks or 8 weeks are important.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're still settling in that period, right?
Okay.
By 6 weeks or 8 weeks, are a little settled. The routine is a little set. Then you can, start looking at, different things.
Right.
And it's not just from the diet perspective. Firstly, you'll have to fix up a schedule for your sleep. Like, little babies would get up every 2 hours, they'll be feeding, and you'll be up all night. So by gradually, you will, fix up a routine for them, for yourself. Once that is fixed, you work on your stress levels as well.
Right.
If every task is, too daunting for you,
Right.
I have to do this as well. So you have to start asking for support as well, right? Whether it's your husband, your family members, or anybody, because you can't expect to do everything on your own.
True.
Right?
True.
So you need that support. So ask for that support. Once that is there, then you start focusing little on your things. So initially, the fitness plan is not like, going to the gym for 60 minutes or 1.5 hours. It's as basic as, doing maybe 15-20 minutes of walk. Right? Once you get a hang of that, from there you progressively, increase.
Just starting something out. Right?
So starting somewhere is important, rather than going to a leap and, I'll be ambitious and go for 1 hour of workout.
Right.
And also because the body has gone through a transition. So the body, in terms of your back, has, taken a hit.
Right.
Because all your body weight has gone forward. So, the center of gravity itself shifts, right? So back muscles become weak. Also, the pelvic floor muscles will widen up to support the childbirth, right? Now, all these muscles also need to be tightened, right? So you have to start with very basic exercises to tighten these muscles.
Understand.
Right? Once the strength is there, then from there you can start building it up.
Okay. So we'll come back to that portion. The reason is, but because it's actually there are so many levels that we really have to peel, and it's so interesting because it's very much in line with what I'm thinking in terms of the conversation as well. But from the coming back one step to the pre-pregnancy, or rather like the pre-delivery phase, you said that of course there are certain aspects and certain areas where you really need to focus on. Like for example, obviously you cannot do any exercise which would rely on your stomach and stuff like that. So what are the good exercises that pregnant women should focus on in that phase so that they can really have which is beneficial for them?
Firstly, they should not start something new. at that point of time, right? So don't be ambitious that you haven't done anything, any time before, and you start, lifting weights and doing something.
Right.
Continue with what you're doing, right? If you've had that experience of, training before something, then you can continue to do that. For example, simple basic exercises can be done, something like a wall push-up, right? Or there can be seated exercises, whether if you're doing it for your upper arms or something, you can sit down and just take water bottles in your hand and push them up like a shoulder press, right? Simple things that light squatting can be done, right? You can do a box squat, take a chair and sit on it and stand. Sitting exercises like leg extension. So all you need to do is probably take an ankle weight, tie it around your leg, and extend your leg. So these very basic exercises, something that you can really do at home. You don't need any equipment for this, and these are not stressful for your body. Right? So these you can continue to do through your pregnancy, even if you haven't done it before, because they are very light. But you should not be very ambitious and jump onto something, now I want to become healthy altogether right now and step into fitness. Now is not the right time to experiment something new.
Got it.
Whereas swimming is a great exercise, walking is a great exercise. You can definitely do yoga during your prenatal phase, right? But do it under a practitioner who has that experience. Don't start on your own.
Yes,
right?
True.
So these are, exercises which are safe for pregnancy.
But do you think this notion where usually women don't do things, pregnant women don't do things, is more like, I think, domestic and more Indian? Because abroad I've seen people who they do everything in and out. I know someone also who until about like 7 or 8 months of pregnancy was going to the workout proper gym.
Yes.
And at some point of time, the gym instructor said that, I think, whenever you're due, but it seems as if you should probably take it a little easy. Is that something which we, I think, as Indians do a lot more?
So I was talking about the lifestyle. The lifestyle of women has changed. Earlier, if you talk about 10-15 years ago, if you talk about a mother, a grandmother, they were working a lot. They were working from morning till night, doing all the chores on their own. So that time it made more sense that they shouldn't be doing anything else, going to the gym or doing any kind of workout, because they were anyways very active. But if we see the current situation, and the women these days, if they're pregnant, they're mostly lying on the bed. If they're working in front of a laptop or on screen. They're not doing much work, right? We have people doing it for them, right? So the activity level has actually gone down, right? So it makes more sense to be active, to do some kind of workout, some kind of exercises, like yoga, swimming, or any strength training, so that the body remains active. Otherwise, what we see is a big change after pregnancy.
Right.
Once we deliver, we have not done anything for 10 months. So the body has become very lethargic.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you've given the responsibility to do everything. So then it takes a toll on your body. Your body is not able to take it, and you start developing back problems, frozen shoulders, or neck issues, or something or the other.
Right.
So what the Indian mindset has to change is this, that these norms were much more applicable earlier, but they aren't so much now.
Right.
And when we compare ourselves to our Western counterparts, you see that women are there much more active. They're going to the gym and they continue to live the same lifestyle that they've been living. But over here in India, we're told you should not be doing anything, but just lying around to take care of yourself. Right. In fact, I was amazingly surprised. I used to follow Sydney Cummings through the lockdown, and I was very inspired by her. She posts a workout every day. And through her pregnancy, she has done and posted a workout every day.
Wow.
So it's actually amazing to see that women can do that. And to break that myth for them is a little difficult, but women now have become, more unconventional, and they understand, okay, this is not what we're supposed to do. Our body is much more capable of that. But yes, of course, like I said earlier, keeping your doctor in loop is very important, because each pregnancy is very different. Each individual is very different.
True.
So that individualistic needs need to be accounted for.
Right. So from a perspective then, I know you mentioned earlier that women obviously tend to go through a lot of changes. I know that it is one of the most joyous times when you're pregnant, when you're expecting a child and bringing a new life into this world, but it also takes a lot of toll on your body.
Yes.
If you can just take us through, like, what are sort of changes that happened through two women, both, I think, mentally and physically. I think that will be really, really beneficial for our viewers.
So let's start with the physical aspect.
Okay.
So as we gain through the pregnancy, the whole weight is around our abdomen. So the whole center of gravity shifts. Now the back has to support that.
Right.
So the back takes a toll. The pelvic floor muscles, we are designed that way. Women are designed that way. They will expand during pregnancy. So they become much more weak. Right? So women also go through something like urine incontinence. Like even if they laugh or sneeze, they will end up passing a little urine. Right?
Okay.
So because those muscles have become really weak, so even after they deliver, these don't tend to go back to normal on their own.
Right.
They will require some rehab time. They will require some rest period and those exercises to bring back to normal.
Okay.
So those rehab exercises post delivery are really important. Simple exercises, your pelvic floor exercises, whether it is bridges, something like heel taps, right, and planks if you don't have any kind of diastasis recti, which
Right.
I will dig into deeper later. So those exercises are really important. Simple things that's prone supermans or T-raise supermans to strengthen your back and lower back. These are important. So when you start doing these, all these muscles that had become weak will start to strengthen. And also the dietary impact is also important at this phase, right? Now we tend to only focus on Indian diet that we eat carbohydrates and fats. That is what our Indian diets are rich in, right? Even if I have to ask a non-vegetarian, they'll end up probably eating non-veg maybe once or twice a week and not on a regular basis. So we are lacking on protein on daily basis. Now
Right.
proteins are the building blocks for your body. So they create amino acids for everything, not just for muscle development, which is the common notion, like proteins are needed by only people who go to the gym. Proteins are needed for everything, for your thyroid function, for your hormones, for your enzymes, for your immunity, everything. So if you don't get sufficient protein, then all these things start to go into deficient mode. Right?
Okay.
And for a lactating mother, it's even more important because she's not just feeding for herself, she's passing that nutrition to the child.
Right.
So in fact, if you go through the general norms, if for a normal person, it's 0.8 grams per kg weight, for a lactating mother, it's 1.2 grams per kg weight.
Wow.
So it's higher than a usual person is. So it's important that they go get their protein needs also sorted. So that doesn't mean that you have to go to a protein supplement for your protein needs. Start sorting it out through your dairy foods, right? Your natural sources, whether if you're a vegetarian, then dairy products, soy-based products. If you're non-vegetarian, that it can come from eggs, it can come from chicken, fish, and other protein sources. But including them are also very important.
Okay.
Like similarly, if you compare your Indian counterparts to your Western counterparts, you will see that their plate will always have a portion of some protein in plate. They'll have their veggies, they'll have some carb portion. So it's a more balanced diet.
Right.
But our diet is more or less based on roti, sabzi, dal, rice. Because we were also an agriculture society, so we were always told ki dal is a protein, we should
Yes.
eat that only. But it doesn't suffice. So
True.
having those things are also important. So both diet and workout have an impact on your body.
Yeah, I think because also most people don't even recognize that how important role does diet play into general fitness as well.
Of course.
And I'm assuming for someone who's postpartum even more,
Yes.
from that perspective.
Yes. And see, women tend to get deficient, like I also said, in calcium, iron. So diet is important for them, right? Proteins, calcium, iron, omega-3. It also has to come from diets. Your doctor might prescribe you a calcium supplement, iron supplement, which is very common post-delivery for lactating mothers.
Right.
But you need to also support it through diet, right? At some point of time, you're going to give up on these supplements, right? And if it's not coming from your dietary sources, you're not be able to meet your nutritional needs, right? And no matter how many supplements you have, your real food is always going to be the king, right? So sort those things first from food. Then if you're not able to meet the deficiency, then probably go to a supplement.
But realistically, is it possible to get, because naturally, like the reason is because our food is so processed, we cook it so much, and things like that, a lot of it gets washed away naturally during those times as well. So is it possible to realistically just achieve that level of protein and that level of vitamins and all from just the diet itself?
So the problem is we start thinking from towards the last step. we are not fixing the basics first. We're
Okay.
thinking about nutrient timing, we're thinking about, how much nutrition are we able to get out of it. But you should start somewhere. Once that habit is fixed, then you start focusing on other things.
Okay.
Right? Like I hear a lot, palak should not be eaten with paneer, because that's an iron source, that's a calcium source, so they tend to interfere. But are you even getting iron from any other sources? You might as well get some out of it, even if it is not absorbed properly.
Okay.
So fixing that basics first is important. We will not go and question when you ask, eat a samosa, what timing to eat it, or what to avoid and in what oil it is cooked, right? You're going to just eat it. But when you're cooking at home, you're going to question everything. This is getting overcooked, this is processed. So having those basics right is important. If you don't have your basics right, you can't make a building over it.
Understand.
Right? So make your basics strong. Once they are strong, then start working on other things. You might want to, add millets to your diet. You might want to experiment, if dairy works for you, doesn't work for you, right? And you want to work on nutrient timings, what time you're eating, what time you're sleeping, what should be had in the morning, evening. But that comes at a later stage. If you don't fix your basic habits, it's very, difficult to jump to the other ones.
Understand. But then what percentage of, like, especially for someone who's just delivered, what percentage of the divide you feel is important? Like, for example, is it like more of a 50-50 when it comes to like the exercise regimen and diet, or is does it have to be equal?
Diet is 80%.
Oh.
For anybody, diet works 80%, right? But workout is equally important. If you think that you're going to, work out a lot and, get off those excess calories eaten, you are, probably in for an injury. Because you want to outdo it. You've had a slice of cake and you've had, maybe a burger. Now next day you want to just keep running on the treadmill just to, get it off. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
How much calories can you even burn there, right?
True.
And you might end up, injuring yourself in the process. So you have to think of workout as something that strengthens your body rather than something that, burns calorie.
Got it.
While diet is something that nourishes your body rather than, starvation. Because that's the common notion people have. If I say the word diet, people think, I'm just eating soups and salads. They will not believe, I eat my normal roti, sabzi, everything in my diet, right? But what diet actually means is something that a person eats usually, right? So that is what you should be following rather than, going with the fad diets that people follow these days, right? Eat what your culture, in your culture you eat which is what is locally grown, right? But make it a more balanced diet rather than, concentrating on certain foods only.
Right.
So you've heard that, tagline that, abs are not made in the gym, they're made in the kitchen. And that's actually true, but that doesn't mean that your workouts don't play a role. They're equally important, but yes, if you're looking for, probably a weight gain, weight loss, maintenance, your diet is going to play a much bigger role in that.
So this obviously takes care of the physical part. Now, as we discussed that, I think the biggest change that the body for women goes through is during the pregnancy period is the mental, state of mind. What are those sort of challenges? And especially, I think, the reason I ask is because I think men are they're wired in a very different manner. For them, when their partner is, of course, pregnant and they're bringing a new life into the world, their thought process is very different in terms of a lot of other economics which is going on, a lot of the other things that require, whether it's going to be comfortable, X, Y, Z, and all of these things. I think it doesn't even cross their mind in this respect that, look, your partner might require that level of mental support, things like this. So can you tell us about that? Like, how do you...
So see, basically, men and women are wired differently. Men are more practical and women are more emotional. And because they've carried this life inside them for, so long, the attachment level is to the next level. I won't say that, fathers are not attached, but there's definitely a thing called, motherly instinct, right? So they're more protective towards, their babies and everything. But their life is changing, right? It has changed a lot. A person who might be working is on a break, on a maternity leave. They're not even sure that if they'll be able to start working because currently it looks very difficult, right? Because they're up through the night, you're feeding every 2 hours, you don't know when you're going to get sleep. You can't look at yourself if your body has changed a lot. So you don't kind of get that kind of self-confidence. Every way, for your partner, the life doesn't change so much. He can still go to his work and come back, but you have to be around because you're feeding your child, right? So your life changes a lot as a woman, right? And it becomes very hard to accept in this new phase. So that's why a lot of women go through postpartum depression, which a lot of people don't understand. Sometimes it can get to that level that women feel detached from the child, right? And it can also trigger suicidal feelings. It can also trigger, in extreme cases where you want to get rid of the child, which is not a thought that somebody would want to get to.
Wow.
So attending to these tendencies is very important. You need to look for signs. Is the person feeling too detached? Is she being in a shell and not coming out? Those behaviors, I think the partner plays a very important role in that, right? Because a woman is subjected to a lot, and a lot of societal pressure also. If you start working, you get judged. If you don't work, you get judged. So at every point of time, there is a judgment getting passed, and for a mother, it becomes difficult to deal with. And there's always this mother's guilt even if you start working. So that initial phase is difficult, and most women who are on maternity leave start working, 6 months. That's not a big time that for them to transition into. The child is still very small. So that supportive environment has to be there, right? And that's why, there are a lot of mothers community these days where people are coming together to share their problems and what they're going through, so that people can discuss about it and find solutions. I think hearing them out is the biggest thing that you can do.
Yes.
And you don't have to find a solution for them. You just have to listen to what they have to do. They know the solution probably, but they just want to let it out.
Right.
So the biggest thing I think men can do is just listen to them and just support them through their journeys. And yes, of course, take some burden off them, right? If you can support through your night duty or something, do it. Whatever way you can. So I think that paternal leave should also be, something as official these days now.
It is, no doubt about it, yeah. And I think a lot of the men, especially of the younger generation or the newer generation,
They're hands-on.
They're definitely hands-on. I'm sure that they're extremely supportive as well. But then yes, I think still from a perspective of how it works inside the head, the reason is because I also feel that a lot of times, because of some of the things that you mentioned, some of the mental challenges or some of the pressures that you might be feeling, because of that, people don't also always talk openly as well. Because I think in whatever little experience that I have, I can't really tell whether somebody is depressed or not, or if they're going through a challenging phase. And naturally, if it's a little outside the comfort zone, you might not ask about that question.
Right.
And there is a 99.9% chance that the other person who's going through that will not really, voice their feelings in that respect as well. But from a perspective then, does fitness in such situations help a lot to bring everything back onto like a centered, gravity and central force?
Of course it does. Because, if you're able to even take 30 minutes out for yourself, it means a lot. Because right now, through your pregnancy, you're asked, what would you want to eat? What do you want to do? All of a sudden, everything is around your child.
Right.
That focus shifts. You feel left out. Everything has turned upside down in one day, right? Now, even if you're able to take out that 30 minutes for yourself, it's a big thing. And workouts or fitness has that kind of impact on your hormones as well. You release those kind of endorphins, which makes you feel good. You feel that, okay, you're progressing, you're doing something for yourself and you're going to reach your goal. But if you don't end up doing that, you're feeling that, all I'm doing is just taking care of my child. I have nothing to do for myself. How am I going to change my life? How am I going to turn around the situation?
Right.
And that again triggers another depressing thought. So it's about your physical changes, it's about your emotional changes, it's about insecurities of the future, and a lot of things that are coming together, to make you go through that phase.
Right.
So it's important to understand all of that.
Yeah. I wanted to also address and talk about, the physical changes that you mentioned. That's a very, very important point because I think I've like seen so many examples of people who've been in top shape before they've actually become pregnant, and then after that they've kind of, like you mentioned, they've lost their confidence, they become insecure because naturally at some point of time there is that difference in terms of the relationship between their partner and them that has naturally come in because desire is something which is very, very natural, and sometimes it's a lot of a physical instinct as well. So from that perspective, I mean, how do you, if when you are in this sort of a phase, how do women really kind of get out of that rut? Is it like, again, start slow with like small things?
Yes, it has to start slow, but it is important that you start immediately.
Okay.
If you keep waiting, I'll wait for 6 months, 8 months and then start, firstly your motivation goes down. Like most of my clients who come to me, post 2.5 months of their delivery are able to get to their results quickly. Why? Because they're highly motivated. They're not able to see themselves like that, They can't see themselves in the mirror, they have lost their confidence. So it's like, they have everything to lose right now. So they want to they've crashed, rock bottom, and they want to get up from there.
Right.
But if you start your journey a little after that, you become a little comfortable in who you are. Your wardrobe starts to change, you'll start giving away all your clothes and you're getting new ones, so you start becoming comfortable at that. And you believe that, this is a mom's body now. So it's going to look like that. You don't believe that it can go back to the same body.
Okay.
So that belief is the strongest when you are starting, new. But slowly and gradually it fades away. Then you would need another kind of motivation to get you started. Then it could be anything. Like for my example, if I had to say, I had gained a lot in my pregnancy, and I lost my 15 kgs initially because I had that motivation. Okay, I have to get back to in shape till my baby's first birthday or something. But then that motivation faded away after that. I had another 10 kgs to lose, but I became comfortable there. Okay, this is a mom body. I'm like looking decent, not there yet, but I think this is what my body is going to look like. Then other health problems started creeping in. That made me realize, okay, I need to lose these 10 kgs. I cannot let this hamper my health because I have my kids dependent on me.
Okay.
I have my family dependent on me. So that's why it's important for women also to take care of their health. They're holding that fort. Right?
True.
If they are not there, then everything's going to collapse. So if they don't take care of their health, then who's going to take care of the kids? Who's going to take care of the family?
Understand.
Right? So they need to do it for themselves. And the same thing happened for me. When that started coming, I realized I had to lose this weight, and which made me realize that I can go beyond it.
Okay.
It's not that this is a mom body, it can't change. So many people just bounce back. Why? Because they have that belief that I can get there. So it's the belief that counts.
Understand.
Right? And that's why the more earlier you start, you still have that belief, okay, I can still bounce back. Right?
Got it. Yeah, from a perspective in terms of like health benefits also that you mentioned, actually a thought that comes to my mind is that, I think at least like maybe my numbers or percentage might be a little wrong, but maybe I'd say 50 to 60% of the women today, especially the younger generation, they either have some complication in terms of either PCOS, PCOD and XYZ. So is that even prevalent? Even usually it is always prior to pregnancy. They say that once you deliver and things like that, then those tend to fade away. One, is that true? Do women even after pregnancy have these challenges? And having a good healthy lifestyle plus a good exercise regimen, does this eradicate these challenges?
Of course. So if you look, I think 9 out of 10 women have PCOS these days.
Wow.
That's a big number.
Yeah, 90%. Huh?
Yes. And it's not just pre-pregnancy and they get okay, because you have a certain kind of different hormones through your pregnancy. Till some time they're going to be okay. But if you don't correct your lifestyle, what is causing those problems? See, a lot of time for PCOS, if you go to a doctor, they'll prescribe you medicines, some OCP, oral contraceptives, or some other medicines to control your insulin levels, or other medicines to, control the external, symptoms like whether facial hair growth or acne. But if you don't correct the cause of the problem, this is like a band-aid on the problem. The cause is still there, right? So you need to understand why have these problems started coming in and how do I can manage them. See, we might not be able to reverse them, but even if you manage the symptoms, then you're able to hang around with it without any complications. So this PCOS can of course come back after pregnancy also. So one of the biggest reasons that triggers PCOS is the weight gain. So with weight gain, women tend to get PCOS, diabetes, thyroid. So these are lifestyle changes, right? And these are lifestyle disorders. So PCOS itself causes a lot of insulin resistance in the body, right? Because of which now the weight gain happens. And it's like a vicious cycle. If the weight gain happens, the insulin resistance started increasing, and if that increases, losing the weight becomes difficult.
Right.
So handling PCOS is very important, and some of the key factors would be, keeping a check on your sugar levels, how much sugar you're consuming through the day. And even if you don't, consume sugar per se, like in your, tea, coffee or something, but there may be other hidden sugars that are coming into food, right? There are a lot of products that you consume these days have a lot of processed food that have sugars in them. We don't end up eating, a lot of complex carbs. We end up eating a lot of simple carbs and all. So those have a lot of sugars. So maintaining your carbohydrates and checking how much you're eating is important. Having a good activity level is important. Like for women with PCOS, 150 minutes per week is the bare minimum they need to do.
Wow.
Right? So that's how much you need to be accountable for your workouts. Other simple things like, just having a good diet. Like if you're just having a diet which is focused on one kind of food and you're ignoring other kind of food, it makes a disbalance in your body, right? So having all kinds of food, whether it's your, carbohydrate, fats, proteins, your green vegetables, your fruits, all of those things are important. So it's like sticking to your basics.
Right. Right.
So when you include those things and manage everything, these things become much more simpler and easier to handle.
Got it.
Then your period cycle gets regulated and all your symptoms get handled.
Okay.
And there can be other micro level deficiencies also that you need to take care of.
Okay.
So those also need to be addressed.
Understand. So you mentioned earlier that when it comes to the pregnancy period, then the center of gravity sort moves obviously because you become yes.
Bigger.
So when you then start doing post-pregnancy workouts, are there muscles which lose fat and weight faster and earlier as compared to the other body parts?
So firstly, I'll talk about diastasis recti.
Okay.
So this is a condition which happens with most women, right? It corrects itself on its own, but for some women, it takes time. So what happens is, we have our abdominal muscles. They are bridged like that, right? When you're gaining weight, so these will also increase. So there is a gap that comes between both the muscles.
Okay.
Right? Now, a lot of times post-delivery, this heals on its own in those 6-8 weeks. They come together on its own. But for a lot of women, it doesn't heal. Right? So there is like a 2-finger, 3-finger, 4-finger gap for them, right? So it's important first to heal those muscles. So you can't, just jump to any kind of workout. Like things like, anything which causes your abdomen to bulge out cannot be done. That should be absolutely avoided. You can't do your crunches, you can't do your sit-ups, you can't do your planks. So things like, dead bugs can be done, or heel taps, obliques can be done, or things like bridges can be done, or instead of plank, you can do a side plank. So nothing that causes bulging of your abdomen should be done. Once those muscles are healed, then you can gradually start to do all these things.
Okay.
So that's the biggest change, the muscle that goes to the biggest change. Also pelvic floor muscles. So whether it's your glute muscles that you need to strengthen. So, your glute bridges are really important. Bird dogs, fire hydrants, they become really helpful, in strengthening those muscles, right? Kegel exercises are the best thing that you can do through your pregnancy and after those pregnancy to, basically tighten those vaginal muscles and other muscles. So these things are important to start with first, right? Also because, you'll be carrying your child all the time. So there's a lot of movement of the upper body, right? So your shoulders also need that kind of strength, right? So those shoulder muscles also need to be strengthened. And of course, your legs take, the weight of the whole body. So they also need to be strengthened. So it's not that one particular muscles should be focused on and others should be ignored, because if you start ignoring one muscle and just focusing on, they become weak.
Understand. Right.
So it has to be an overall, workout for all the muscles. But yes, some muscles require more focus, like your pelvic floor muscles, your abdomen muscles, and your back muscles. They will require more focus, but you need to focus on other muscles too.
Understand. From a physical standpoint, I think this is a question that I feel that a lot of men also might have, and I'm sure it's more like for women, because naturally when you are in that post-delivery phase and your body changes, there are stretch marks which basically come everywhere. Now, is it really possible to reverse that process, or there is only way to actually just reduce that effect or impact?
See, the stretch marks depend upon the elasticity of the body.
Okay.
Right? For people who gain a lot of weight, like who have gone through a transition of gaining, 10, 20, 25 kgs, tend to have stretch marks. Also, the color of the skin, the lighter the color of skin, people tend to have more stretch marks. So what you can do through your pregnancy, try and always lubricate them, always oil them and keep them hydrated, drink enough water, so that these stretch marks, at least the tendency to come would be less. But there isn't anything in particular that you can say, okay, these are not going to come. Just make sure that you have a healthy weight gain through your pregnancy and you don't, shoot up like a balloon. And postpartum also, you need to take care of yourself, and these marks will start slowly fading away, because it's like if you have had a balloon, right? If you inflate it, right, it becomes big. Now immediately you release it, it's still normal. But if you keep that balloon inflated for some time and after that you release it, you will see that it becomes kind of saggy. And that's how the muscles in the body also help to take you the shape. Right? Now, after just delivery, you feel that abdomen is just sucked in and it's looking all saggy, and you don't like even seeing your abdomen. But now strengthening your muscles is going to help. So imagine the same balloon if it had a stone inside it. Now, if I release the air, the balloon is going to take the shape of that stone.
Right.
Same goes for our muscles in the body. The muscles act as that stone. So if you develop good muscles, so even if you lose that flab over it, at least it will take some shape.
Got it.
Right? Rather than become, flabby.
Understand. Because I think that's also a very, a topic where people, especially when they see their body change, I've seen like so many people when their body change in that respect as well, and they're not used to that, then they feel a little out of place, and I think it also kind of affects a little bit mentally as well. Very interesting in terms of what you said earlier. One more part was about exercising and then also mental health as well. But going one more layer deeper in terms of mental health, I know you mentioned that a lot of people just basically require an ear. They just want to be heard, and that's probably the first step to do that. But if someone is possibly, especially in that stage, then how do you motivate them to actually do fitness, like especially from your perspective as a coach? How do you get people to work around that? Because I'm sure that's the most important.
So the biggest struggle I think with the mothers is that they don't have the time. So if I have to ask them, do you have the time? They say, no, I don't have time. I hardly have time to sleep. So ask them, what do you do in the evenings? So they'll say, my child is there, so I just be around him. Like, why don't you take him for a stroll? Right? So you go down with with your child for a stroll. So you are becoming active. The child is also exposed to a different atmosphere. You also have that bonding time with your child, right? So I ask them to start with very basic things. When your child is a little more responsive, like by 8 weeks or 12 weeks, they start responding. So I tell them, why don't you use them as a dumbbell? Start squatting with them, use them for your chest press, right? It becomes like a playful time, and it becomes like an activity for you. So you don't have to do hardcore gymming or anything. You have to start with basic things, whatever you can accommodate in your time, right? So starting somewhere is important. So when you start doing these things, now you have the time, you are able to not feel the guilt also that I'm leaving my child to go and do something. You're involving your child in something. The child also understands, this is a part and parcel of my mother's routine as they grow up. So they do understand, my mother works out for, probably half an hour, 1 hour every day. So for them, fitness becomes an important part. And I've seen this with not just my kids, and with a lot of mothers who have younger kids. When they started working out, for them the biggest challenge was first to find out time. My child will not leave me. After 2 months, they would come and tell me that now my child puts out the mat and tells me how to do a push-up, or how to do a workout. So they are also equally involved. So it's a habit, not just you setting for yourself, but also for your child. But when they're young, involving them some way makes more sense for you, because then you have the time also at hand, and you're able to come out of that zone also.
Yeah. So I know there is no like prerequisite answer for this, but say for example a scenario where somebody who's post-pregnancy put on about 20 odd kgs, yeah, and if they follow like say maybe 60% of what you're suggesting, which is in terms of doing exercises, following a good diet and XYZ, I know everybody's body is different, but how much time does it usually take for them to get back into shape?
So I always ask them this question: how much time did you take to gain this?
Okay.
So they say, 9 months, 10 months. So I would say, if not more, at least give yourself this much realistic time. See, rushing into things, there are fat diets and everything available everywhere where they'll make you lose, 10 kgs, 20 kgs, maybe in months. But that will take a toll on your health. And as a mother, you can't afford to do that. Right? So set a realistic target for yourself. It has to be long term as well as short term. So realistically speaking, women are able to get back to little more closer to what they were in this 10 months on that year's frame of time.
Right.
Provided they're consistent with their effort and everything, and when they start is also important. So once they start in that year's time, they're able to get back to where they were. But they should not rush into it. They should take those progressive steps. So if somebody has to lose 8 to 10 kgs, of course, depending, on person's body, how much fat they had to lose, everything, they're able to lose 6 to 10 kgs in 3 months, depending where they're starting from, right? And if somebody has a target more than that, it takes 6, 8 or 9 months, at least this much time.
Okay.
Right? So that is something that they should realistically have in mind, this much time it's going to take. But sometimes when they have a longer target in mind, they're not able to visualize it. Like, how will I reach there? It's such a big target. So then you have to also break it down into short-term goals, right? If 9, 10 months is what we're, the goal that we set to achieve, then we have to break it down and bring it to, 3-month goal, to a monthly goal, to a weekly goal. When I tell you, you have to just lose 0.5 kgs or 1 kg something per week, that is not a big target for them, right? But when I say you have to lose 25 kgs, it becomes a big target, and they think that you're never going to achieve this.
Right. So small steps.
Small steps.
Yeah.
Having a long-term as well as a short-term.
Short-term plan. Okay. The famous mythological or myth question, inches or kgs, what is like the more healthier format or the frame?
Okay, so everybody is obsessed with the scale, right? I have all my clients telling me, okay, today I have gained 0.5 kgs on the scale. Oh my God, I ate everything right yesterday. Why did that happen? Now, firstly, you have to understand that your weight is not just made up of, your fat. It is made up of your muscles, it is made up of your water, organ weight, blood, and a lot more things, right? So it's not just gaining and losing on your fat. It's these things also. Right? So there are a lot of factors that affect your weight gain, right? You probably had a carb heavy meal. You probably didn't sleep well. You probably had a lot of stress going on. For women, period cycle becomes one more thing. Like during your week 2 and week 4 of your cycle, women tend to gain a little water weight because of the hormones of estrogen and progesterone, which are higher those times. So there are a lot of other factors that impact your weight. So you should not subject yourself, what is my weight? Is it reducing or not? And I always tell them, is somebody going to come and ask you what's your weight?
Right.
Nobody comes to you and asks that question. They'll look at you and say, wow, you've lost all the weight, and you might have just been losing the inches.
Exactly.
So you have to understand, when you lose the weight, there are 2 main percentages to it. One is your muscle percentage and one is your fat percentage. Now you have to try and lose more of the fat percentage and keep your muscles, because muscles enable your movement. Right? For everything, whether you're walking, sitting, picking up a child, taking suitcases, you need your muscles, right? So we have to preserve them, because with age, anyway, they're degenerating, right? So we need to try and preserve them, and the only way you can do them is through exercise and a good diet.
Right.
So when you lose on inches, that means that you're losing more on fat, because fat is more voluminous. Muscles are much more toned. If I had to give an example, a 1 kg dumbbell and a 1 kg cotton mass. So 1 kg dumbbell is your muscle and 1 kg cotton mass is your fat. So if you had more, even at the same weight, if you had more fat, then it looks more voluminous.
Right.
But if you had more muscle, it looks more toned and more streamlined, and your inches become better. So that's why the target should, of course, if it is a big weight that you want to lose on the scale as well. But I think inches you should be more focused on, because that is something that's going to make you understand what exactly are you losing from your body.
Understand. Now from a protein perspective, now I know you mentioned that it's very important to get that on a diet and things like that. For the ones who can't get it into that diet, especially for women who've basically just delivered, or pregnant women who've just recently come out of that phase, is there a time period that, apart from the exercise, that they should not take this until? Because as you said, when they're lactating, if they are breastfeeding and XYZ, do those things have a direct relation to?
So women or men, irrespective, they should be having proteins in their diet. Lactating mothers, compared to normal women, have a slightly higher amount of protein requirement because they are breastfeeding. So they need to include their proteins not just in one meal. They have to break it down through the day. The protein is not going to get absorbed in your body if you just have altogether one meal as like a protein high meal. So you have to break it down through your meal. So 2 meals which are absolutely important is one your morning and one is your evening or dinner, right? Because dinner, after that there's a long gap, and similarly after a long gap you wake up and you need your meals to start with a balanced diet, right? That's why they say breakfast is the best meal, it should be the best meal, but it also needs to be the balanced meal.
Okay.
Right? If you start your day with carbohydrates, you tend to crave throughout the day.
Okay.
But if you start your day with a balanced meal, there's less chances of you having cravings through the day. Yeah, and that energy crashes that come during afternoon also tend to reduce. So that's why it's important that you break those protein through the day, and it's not that you have to take a lot of protein in one meal and around your workouts only. You need protein throughout the day. So it should be broken down in a way that there is a 3-4 hour gap between two protein sources, right? So that one gets absorbed properly and then you have the other source. And also in one meal, the amount of protein that should be there in the diet, it should not be more than 30 grams. Okay. Because then even if you're taking it, it's not getting absorbed in the body.
Okay.
So might as well split it through the day and then have it.
But then do these protein powders, XYZ and all of these things help in this case? Because naturally you're not getting 30 grams of proteins is very difficult to from a diet.
So see, because we are not used to eating it now, that's why it becomes difficult for us. Now we're told to eat our roti, sabzi from the moment we were born. Right. So roti is a staple diet. Even if you go out and eat a pasta, next day you'll come and you want to have your roti, right? So that is a staple diet for us. Because we were never told to include protein in a diet, it's difficult for us to now include it every day. But once you start making it a practice, it becomes simpler. Now coming to protein supplements, yes, they become an easy source to include. It's a matter of convenience, right? But if you can include it through natural sources, nothing like it. They should be only used as a source of convenience or supplementation when you can't complete it through your natural sources. So even when you say 30 grams is the max limit, it also depends on your body weight, right? So women tend to be, have a petite structure and everything. So women who is like maybe 60-70 kgs and has a higher fat percentage requires much lesser protein. It depends on your muscle mass.
Okay.
Right. So you don't need 30 grams in one meal. So you probably require some 18 grams or 20 grams in one meal. So even if I have to take from a dairy source, probably a low fat paneer source or something, that is like 100 grams of paneer. And if I have to take from soya, it is like 30 grams of soya, which is not a lot. You can consume that much in a meal, right?
Understand.
And also when you break it down through the day, it becomes much more simpler.
Okay. What is the most, what is the most happiest, or rather the most successful story that you've actually seen from some of the people that you've coached? If there are like maybe 1 or 2 anecdotes, if you can give us, because when you're making that effort and when you're trying to do something really important, these are the things which really motivate you as an individual, right?
Yeah. So I get to hear a lot of stories every day. Today only I was talking to a client and she was like, I'm on the verge of giving up. So I asked her, what is it that is happening? I wanted to understand, what is exactly that's going through. So she had been on mental, antidepressant for a very long time, right? So when we started, of course, losing weight was one goal, but her goal was also to, wean off these antidepressants. And she had huge cravings because of the stress. She would eat, 2-3 desserts in a go.
Wow.
So I've been working with her, since 6 months. So I asked her, okay, I want to understand what are the wins that we have done till now, right? So she told me, the other day she went to a donut place with her friends and she didn't feel the urge to eat a dessert. She I was so surprised I didn't have a dessert and came in. So yes, this is one big win. Then she said, now I've made my antidepressants to alternate days. So that's wow. You are coming off your antidepressants. So we might not be making, big wins on the scale, but we are making big wins otherwise, right? And these things are equally important because these make the foundation. I know once these things are fixed, she's going to make changes on scale like that. But we need to work a little more harder on these things because there are a lot other factors going on which affect your physical health. And once we address that, it becomes much easier.
Yeah. How much of that effort is also a lot to do with not just doing fitness and nutrition and diet and stuff like that, and it's more like from a coaching then because some of the things that you just spoke about is more about actually addressing the mental mind frame of the individuals. How much of that is there?
See, I believe coaching has changed a lot. People were following, different kind of diet plans earlier. There used to be one paper, you would eat this in the morning, this in the afternoon, this in the evening. That used to be the diet plan, right? Coaching has evolved. Even the coaches have evolved that way because we have come to an understanding that, you're not just dealing with the person's body in terms of their kg, weight or inches. We are also dealing with a lot that is going inside the body per se, their mental health, emotional health, any kind of diseases they're dealing with, any autoimmune disorders they're dealing with. So we have to understand their lifestyle there. So a lot of times I talk to my client and tell them, if I make a diet plan where I give you this thing to follow, you'll probably follow it for 3 months. And then, you go back to normal lifestyle after you reach your target. And then again, that cycle starts and you start gaining the weight. And then after 5 months, you'll be looking for another, dietitian to give you a diet to, get to the goal. But why don't we make changes in your lifestyle itself? So that's a part of coaching. I have to understand your lifestyle. I have to understand what is it that you do, right? Where is it that you're making a mistake? What is it that I can do to help you correct those mistakes? Because if I make changes in your lifestyle to help you come out of it, you'll be able to correct the mistakes that you're making, which has led to the weight gain. And if you correct that, then it's not an effort to maintain it. Then it's not a struggle every 3 months I have to follow a diet, reach a goal, and then, again start back again.
Right.
So the coaching has come to a phase where we are not giving monthly diet plans. We're working on the psychology of a person, the habits they have, which they want to wean off, and the habits they want to pick up, and how to deal with them. It takes time.
Right.
You can't pick up a habit in 1 day or 1 month. It takes time. As simple as that, we brush our teeth when we wake up in the morning. Why? Because we've been told to do it, since the time we were born. So these habits also take time, and we have to be patient with it. And the curve is never going to be linear. I know that there'll be times when my clients like that will come and say, I'm okay in the verge of giving up. So those are times I have to talk to them and understand exactly what is the problem that they're going through and how can we fix it. So when we build a plan which is around their lifestyle, which is something that they can accommodate in their lifestyle, it becomes much more easier to follow in the long term.
Right.
It becomes a much more sustainable plan that way. And the idea is not just to give them a plan to reach a target, but something they get equipped to do afterwards as well.
Got it.
Because you cannot be, expected to eat differently all your life. You're going to come back to your normal eating habits. I always give that example that if a person eats idli, dosa, is a South Indian, for breakfast, I can't give him an avocado on toast.
Right.
He can probably eat it for some days, months, but he can't do it for life. He's eventually going to come into his idli, dosa.
Right.
So I have to make him understand how much of that he needs to eat and what is it that is missing in his diet that he needs to include so that it becomes a balanced diet.
Okay. So it's about having everything, but yet in a balance so that
So moderation is key to everything.
Okay.
So even when the people say water is the best thing, you can't go wrong with it. You can't even have excess water.
Yeah, true.
It will disturb the electrolyte balance.
Right.
So you have to maintain moderation in everything. So whether it's eating your pizza, burgers, even with your nuts or healthy foods that you eat, you have to maintain a balance.
Okay. What are your top 3 staples, or what would your recommendation be for the top 3 things that women who's possibly postpartum needs to do?
So first thing is like having proteins, like I said. So get it from your natural sources. Like I'm a vegetarian, so vegetarians struggle a lot to include proteins in your diet. Non-vegetarians still have a lot of non-veg options, or if you're a over-vegetarian, you still get eggs and everything. But for a vegetarian, if you're a mother, it's a hard thing to include. So a lot of dairy products can come in. You can include some pulses also in your diet to get you some amount of protein. Sprouts is something that you can do. Then soy-based products is something that you can do. Tofu, soy milk, and everything. These things that you can include in your diet to get your protein sorted. And a lot of these soy-based products also come with a lot of vitamin D and calcium fortified foods. So you get a lot of calcium also from there if you're not taking a dairy product. Right. Second would be omega-3. Right, so these come from, if you consume fish and all, it comes from fish, it comes from fish oil, but you don't take that, then walnuts, flax seeds, these are good sources. So having some kind of nuts are also important in your diet, because omega-3 fatty acids help in brain development. So even when you're pregnant, you should be including these in your diet, and after delivery also till your time you're lactating, or otherwise as well, you should have these in your diet, right? Especially when you're lactating, these are important to have. The third thing would be iron-rich foods. So if you're a non-vegetarian, again, because non-vegetarian foods have heme iron, which is much more bioavailable. But for non-vegetarian, the non-heme iron sources, which is your, maybe your spinach, your dried apricots, your dates, anjees, moringa, these are good sources to include in the diet, because iron is something, because women go through a lot of blood loss, right? So they have to also supplement it. They do get usually a lot of iron supplement, mostly gynecologists would prescribe it, but supplements can have that effect on your body that tend to get upset stomach, or it doesn't suit you, cause you nausea. So try including them through these dietary sources as well.
Right. Last couple of questions. One very interesting question that came to my mind was alcohol consumption. I know that lifestyle has changed obviously for everyone, from what the consumption of alcohol used to be for women earlier. Now, naturally, because of the changes in lifestyle, there is a lot of consumption, or there's an increase in that consumption. Is it like that till the time post a pregnancy, if women are breastfeeding and XYZ, then they're not supposed to consume even 0% alcohol, or is there some leeway, some room?
See, as per the doctor recommendation and what WHO recommends, they should not be consuming alcohol. But I tend to see a lot of women, if they're not breastfeeding and all, so then, they can consume alcohol. But if you're continuously breastfeeding and you're also passing it to your child, so avoiding is the best thing that you can do. So sticking to the norm is something. And anyways, now WHO has, published a guideline where alcohol in no amounts is good, right? So that way, if you go by the norms, then it's not even good for an individual. But we tend to all do things other than the norms.
A little bit of vices are allowed.
Yes. So yes, as long as you control it and you know what you're doing, then it's fine.
I understand. I know you mentioned this earlier, but the 5 best exercises for 2 parts. 1, women during pregnancy, when just about pre-delivery, and 5 post-delivery.
So swimming is one of the best exercises because it's a very low impact exercise. Secondly, walking can be done. Yoga under like a prenatal yoga can be done under an instructor. And if you've been doing strength training, then you can continue to do so. Like I said, make it like a circuit where you do each body part. Like simple things like wall push-ups can be done. Then shoulder presses can be done in a seated position. Then you can do squatting. If you're not comfortable, do it on a chair, and then there can be sitting position which can be taken for leg extension. You can lie down on the floor till the time you reach 4th, 5th month, where the pressure is a lot. Then you can do bridges and everything, and you can do Kegels. So these are all exercises that you can do throughout your pregnancy. Not a lot, or post 5th month on your lying back position.
Understand. Great. Thank you so much, Suvidhi, for doing this. It was really, really interesting. And I think, I hope that a lot of the people who are watching this as well, they are able to get a lot more insight in terms of what I know for sure that I have, because there are so many things that you don't pay attention to, a lot of the tiny things. And I think those are the things that we really spoke about today.
I think till the time I got into this, I was also not aware of all
Right.
this. And every time I talk to a new mother or individual, I feel that there's a lot of educating that needs to happen, right?
True.
Because there are a lot of myths around pregnancy, postpartum, prenatal that we need to come out of, because the lifestyles have changed a lot and we need to work around it. What was true probably 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago might not be true now, because
Right.
the environment is changing so much, right? So it's important to educate people, I think, and this is one of the greatest mediums that I could have had to get a chance to educate them. And I hope they understand the value of fitness and nutrition, not just for an individual, but per se for women who are coming out of, pregnancy.
Great. Thank you so much, Suvidhi. Really nice to
Thank
have
you.
you here.